Yeah.
Okay. I'm Penny Dye. I'm the vice chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm gonna serve as chair for this meeting. Brian Sullivan's our chair. He's here, but he's unable to act as chair right now. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order of April the 15th, 2025. And I see I'm gonna do a roll call. All of our votes are gonna be by roll call. And I will do attendance first, trust members first. When I call your name, please say present or here. Tom Dixon.
Here.
Thank you. Abby De Molina.
Here.
Thank you. Megan Browers.
Here.
Thank you. Brian Sullivan. You're muted. Okay, well, the chair's going to say here, and hopefully Brian will unmute and say here. And if he doesn't, we'll give him another chance. Okay. All right. Let's see. Staff, Rachel Field.
Here.
And Christy Ferrantella.
I'm here, and we do have a new staff member, which is Dylan, that I'm going to introduce in our announcements.
Oh, okay. And Ellis.
Here.
And then I see members of and Lee, I'm sorry, Lee Smith, our counsel.
Here.
And Dylan Metch Ampel, am I saying it correctly?
Yes, that's great. Here.
Thank you. Christy, you want to introduce Dylan now? Oops, you're muted.
There we go.
Okay.
Dylan is our new Deputy Director of Housing. He's just started yesterday with the town, and I can give him a minute to introduce himself, but we're very excited to have him join the town, and we've already swamped him with all the projects.
Yeah, hi all. Thank you, Christy. Yep, new Deputy Director of Housing. Before this, I was doing some research down at the University of Virginia. Before that, I was in graduate school getting my master's in urban and environmental planning and working at a local nonprofit as the Climate Justice Fellow. So background in housing, community engagement, community outreach, that kind of thing. Excited to be here with you all.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Brian, we were taking attendance before and you were muted. Can you just say here, please, for the record?
I am here, present. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you so much. And then we also have guests. We've got Tucker Holland, Jack Bulger, Ann Kutzba, Kylie Wilcox, and it looks like Mary Mack. And I don't think I missed anybody. Oh, and Forrest, you need to say that you're here as well, if you could unmute.
Yes, I'm here, and I apologize for being late. I was having technical difficulties.
Things happen. And then Charlene just joined us as well. Okay. So I've called the meeting to order. The next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Could we have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? If not, by roll call vote, all those in favor, start with Tom Dixon.
Aye.
Thank you. Abby De Molina.
Aye.
Thank you. Megan Browers.
Aye.
Thank you. Forrest Bell.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Vice chair. Sorry. Don't get any ideas. Vice chair. Next on the agenda is public comments. This is for items not anticipated or listed on the agenda. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak, ask a question, make a comment? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we're gonna
Sorry,
move.
Penny. I just wanted to see if the public had a comment first, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody saw the announcement that Habitat for Humanity has released their lottery applications for 2 home ownership units. So all that information can be found at habitatnantucket.org, and we'll make sure that it's a written announcement moving forward. It was just released today.
And these are for the it's for each side of the duplex that they've just broken ground on at Waite Drive.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank
you. Okay. Look, seeing no hands, we're going to move on to approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of March 18th and April 1st. And I sent a bunch of changes, I think, back to Ellis on these. And did anybody else have any suggestions, corrections, additions? If not, Christy, can we take these as one item?
Yes.
For the vote? Okay. If not, would somebody please make a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll
Motion.
move.
Okay, Tom Dixon made it and Forrest seconded it. Is that all right? Yeah. Oops, you're
It
muted.
was Sully. I
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry, it was Brian. Okay. All right, thank you. By roll call vote, all those in favor, Tom Dixon?
Aye.
And I'm just going to do first names. Abby,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Forrest,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and the vice chair votes aye. Okay, next is number 5. It's the acceptance of the deed and settlement statement by the Affordable Housing Trust. I need to recuse from this one item, but I prefer not to drop off and come back in. I'm just going to not vote. I've been consistently recusing and removing myself actually, but this is a vote on an action. It's not a negotiation. Lee, is that okay if I don't go out and come back?
I think it's fine, just don't participate in the
I
discussion.
will not participate in the discussion or the vote. So why don't we have Christy take this over to explain this? Thank you.
Thank you. And stepping in for Penny, is everybody okay with Tom stepping in to be the chair?
Yeah. Thank you, Chrissy. Chrissy, do you want to just do a quick introduction of what the item is, and then we'll proceed with any trust comments and then a possible motion.
Perfect. So I'm going to have Lee go over an explanation of this, but just to give a brief background on this purchase, this is a 2-acre parcel over at 10 Parker Lane and 55 Fairgrounds Road that the trust is looking to purchase as a strategic buy for future home ownership opportunity. And this paperwork, the deed and settlement statement, as well as some of the lease and other materials, lease specs, need to be approved by the chair with review from town council prior to the closing, which we're aiming for April 30th. And through you, Chair, I'll pass it to Lee.
Lee?
Sure, I believe the trust has seen the purchase and sale agreement in prior meetings, so here we're just, these are the documents that are leading up to the closing, which is presently scheduled for April 30th. As part of the purchase and sale agreement and the overall transaction, the business deal was that the current resident of the property at 10 Parker Lane, Margaret Findell, will have the right, essentially a life estate, will have the right to remain in that property for the remainder of her life or until she chooses to vacate it, either voluntarily or involuntarily due to illness, etc. The amount of the rent is $1 per year. The remaining land that's shown on a survey plan includes additional lots that the trust will be authorized to begin construction on if they so choose, with the exception of lot 4. And then the 10 Parker, I believe it's lots 1, 2, and 3 that will remain protected, if you will, no build area. There is a restriction that the trust can only construct residents there that would be for year-round occupancy and presumably for affordable housing purposes. The other relevant closing documents are a notice of lease. The lease itself will not be recorded in the registry of deeds, but a notice of that lease will be. Standard procedure for a lease such as this. And then there is the acceptance of deed that would be signed at the closing, which is also standard. And I had proposed that in a motion, if the trustees so chose, to authorize the transaction to proceed with the authorization of the chair or his designee to sign any and all documents as may be necessary or convenient in order to consummate the transaction. And I further recommend that that transaction and those documents be subject to approval by town council in the event that we need to tweak something that I guess I would consider non-substantive, that would upset the primary business terms of the deal. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Lee. Does any trust members have any questions for town council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the trust accept the lease, notice of lease, and the acceptance of deed, and authorize the chair or his designee to sign all documents, and that is subject to town council approval. Somebody
So
want to make
moved.
that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor by roll call. Abby,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
Forrest,
Aye.
and the chair pro tem votes aye. That passes unanimously. That item is complete. I'll pass it back over to the vice chair.
Thank you, Tom, for stepping in. Okay, next up, item 6 on the agenda is the request for the approval and execution of the Richmond Meadows 1 regulatory agreement. Christy, you want to?
Of course. Thank
Pop
you,
in.
Madam Chair,
You're welcome.
Vice Chair. So the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities approved Richmond's application for their addition of Meadows 1 to the subsidized housing inventory list. That approval came in last week, and the execution of the regulatory agreement puts the restriction on the units to keep them deed restricted at 80% AMI or below in perpetuity. So this is an agreement between the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, the town of Nantucket, and Richmond. It'll be executed by the trust and the select board, which will be at their April 30th select board meeting.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Christy or Lee? Okay, if not, can I entertain a motion, please? Does somebody make it? Sorry.
Make a motion to authorize the chair or designee to execute the documents necessary.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Abby. By roll call vote, all those in favor, Tom,
Aye.
and Megan?
Aye.
Thank you, Forrest.
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and the chair. I'm just going to call myself the chair for today. It's easier. The chair votes aye. That passes unanimously. Next up are status reports for Affordable Housing Trust Fund grants that have been made in a number of areas. The first 3 updates are going to be from Housing Nantucket. The first will be an update on the house recycling grant for 66 Pochick Avenue, followed by an update on the lease to locals grant, which was for this pilot program we funded for the first year, the second year of its existence, first year being funded largely by the town with public money. And then last, Anne will make a report on the Wigglesway development. At our meeting 2 weeks ago, I made a report on Wigglesway from the perspective of a trust member who's been serving for 2.5 years on the construction committee. That's in and that went into our minutes. So we'll do Anne first, and then we have Tucker Holland following Anne. So Anne, why don't you start with 66 Pochick, if you would, please.
Thank you, Penny, and hello to everyone. Thank you for accommodating me last week. I know I was on your agenda, and I appreciate the extra time. So things settled down for me, and now ready to give you some updates. So I'm going to share my screen, and let me know, please. I'm going to try to do a full screen here, so hopefully this will work. Good. Yes.
Looks good.
Thank you. All righty. Many of you know I'm Ann Cuspa, Director of Housing Nantucket, and just a little recap who we are. We've been around for 30 years. I see some of my board members here on this call, and my staff's here too, staff of 4. We are a nonprofit developer. We administer programs that manage year-round housing that meets the needs of the community. We're working along with the Housing Trust to establish a parallel real estate market that is serving alongside the traditional one, but offers both affordable rentals and attainable homeownership opportunities so that the year-round community can continue to live here and work here. So first up is our project at 66 T Pochick Street. And this is a it's 1 unit created through house recycling, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family dwelling, a rental that serves the below 150% AMI level, and that's area median income. We completed this project at the end of February, and tenants have moved in. They're very happy with it. So here's some photos. The house is gorgeous, and we are just so proud. Thank you to those of you who came to our open house to share in our accomplishment. And we're so pleased that the Affordable Housing Trust supported this work. It was very successful, and now there's a year-round family enjoying this space. Just a little summary. As I said, the tenant moved in March 1st. The rent is $3,400, including utilities. The property has solar panels on the site. There's 3 rentals on the site now. So the solar that's generated on the front unit helps to offset the utility bills here in this back unit as well, because it generates so much power, which is amazing. We had budgeted $560,000 for the project, came in a little bit higher, and that was, you know, a lot of it was a infrastructure cost related to upgrading the septic. So now we could put these extra 2 bedrooms on there. So at the end of the day, it created a 2,387 square feet of living space. And when you figure out the cost, pretty dirt cheap, you know, $257 per square foot in construction costs. So as can be expected for house recycling, when you choose the right dwelling and things go smoothly, this is the cheapest way to create affordable housing. So that's kind of a takeaway for me. Next, lease to locals. So we're also very pleased to, yeah, do you want to take questions now, or I can run through whatever you...
Let's just back up here for a second. Yeah, let's take questions, and for each subject. Brian Sullivan, go ahead, your hand is up.
Thank you. And can you review for the public the funding sources that were used to achieve this project?
Yes, absolutely. So the Affordable Housing Trust was the major funder. So that was, I believe it was a $450,000 grant. And then the rest of it, we, let's see, we had basically fundraising through our own initiatives, and the Community Foundation also provided a grant for this.
And then I just have a question. And how did you fund the overages?
It was through our own fundraising efforts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Ann on this particular matter? Okay, I don't see any hands. So Ann, why don't you move on to lease to locals?
All right, thank you, Penny.
Pilot program.
Yeah, this is a private program, as you say. I think this is a really exciting program, and I'm really glad that Housing Nantucket was able to take it on, and then the Affordable Housing Trust was able to fund it, because without you, we can't do the work. I like this program because it uses housing immediately, housing that's already here, it's vacant, it converts it from underutilized housing stock to something that we can fill with year-round families. So it's great because also a lot of the costs for maintaining the dwelling is kind of on the landlord. So this is a subsidy program for the landlord. This is the current grant period is through August of 2025. And I really hope that the Affordable Housing Trust chooses to renew that funding for another year. We'll be coming back in a couple months to ask for that, but I'll give you a little recap. For those of you who aren't living and breathing this, the property must be located on Nantucket. It can't be a year-round rental or have been used as a year-round rental in the past 12 months. It's a conversion program. We're trying to convert the underutilized stock. The new lease must be long-term or 12 months or more, and there's rent caps that it's subject to. There's incentive amounts that vary based on the unit size and the number of qualified tenants, and it's a pretty substantial grant to homeowners of up to $27,000 for a 3-bedroom. I'll go into some more details on that later. At least one member of the household must be employed year-round on Nantucket, and there's also incentives given for children so that we can encourage family participation, because of course families with children are protected class in fair housing law. So first year, there were 22 properties. The program was run by Act Now. There was 54 people housed, 46 qualified tenant households. Average rent was $3,173, and the average monthly rent per bedroom was $1,623. So here we are. You all subsidized and helped us to run year 2. And this is all of your support went towards the grants, and then Act Now and Housing Nantucket did our own fundraising to support the administrative costs on that. And that's what we would like to do again, that your funds would go purely for creating the housing, and we're going to be responsible and continue to be responsible for administering the program. We have a partnership with Placemate, and they do a great job running it for us. And so we'd like to continue that.
And was there not support also from Remain?
Yes, if you'd like, I can get into that in a minute. But now is fine too, Penny. So the Affordable Housing Trust support funded AMI households earning below 175% of the area median income. The Remain gift went towards households that didn't necessarily meet your parameters for the below 175, or sometimes there was, in qualifying tenants, we needed tax returns and other kind of verification, and not all households fit in that, like households that were renewing from last year didn't always fit your program guidelines. So that's what this Remain funding of $100,000 went towards those households, to keep those households housed, and then your funding went exclusively for the 175% AMI qualified tenants.
So, Anne, are you saying that the Remain funding funded subsidies for people earning more than 175% AMI?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, if I jump in, one of the
Please.
concerns last year was we didn't want people who are currently in housing to
Mhm.
be kicked out. So part of the public-private partnership was that the private fundraisers could keep people in their existing housing, keep the Lease to Locals program going, but wouldn't be using taxpayer dollars or Affordable Housing Trust dollars for those rental properties. So
Yep.
we're just utilizing funds for AMI restricted units.
That was a condition of our funding, if I remember.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Anne, you want to keep going?
Sure thing. So year 1 properties that got renewed could receive a 50% incentive. So the idea was to kind of taper off the incentive that the property owner was going to be getting. So that was another condition of the funding. So some of the units were new, so they weren't carried over from last year, but then others did get this reduced incentive. And these are the limits for each. There was also a condition, as you'll see, the maximum rental rate that could get increased was 5%. So some property owners needed to increase the rent more than that, well, then they wouldn't qualify for the subsidy again. So in year 2, we used these incentives for qualified tenants, the maximum incentive per property. So this is by bedroom size, and then the max rental rate that the property owner could charge was this amount. So they needed to adhere to this also.
So Anne,
Yes.
I just have a question. Is it possible, so you've increased the number of properties 35%, right? From the 22 to 34? I think that's 35. Is it possible to get a breakdown by unit size? Like how many of these, what you're calling properties, are single rooms, a private room?
Yeah, we can get that. I'll ask Placemate for that, break it down, and we can get that over to you.
I just think, I know the goal originally was to sort of redirect the rental of properties that have been rented on a short-term basis, as well as those that were vacant. That's what is in the mission statement. And I know the first year it was about 40% of properties that had previously rented on a short-term basis that converted to the program. What I'd like to understand, I mean, there's a big difference between a house that has 3 bedrooms in it and a single room. And I don't believe rooms were rented on a short-term basis prior to this, unless it was through Airbnb or something. Anyway, so I think it would be useful to understand what constituted the makeup of these properties in the first pilot year and in this first year where the town has largely funded this.
Yes, absolutely. We can get you that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of
Go
other
ahead.
requests since,
Yep.
since you're making them. The, only the first slide was in my packet, the rest didn't load.
Yep.
But if we're looking for that end, can you break down, so basically room count, households that were in before, new households, households that were in before and dropped out, and then applicants who didn't come together, so we can get a real understanding of the pressure or capacity. I did see in a slide somewhere that there are still unused funds. So I want to get a better understanding of kind of demand and flow and where the pinch point is and not using all the funds in the year and getting kind of a better grasp on that.
Let me finish
then-
the proposal or this presentation, and I think some of your questions will be answered.
Okay,
Okay.
great. And then
And-
also household size.
Yep.
And would you send this packet that you have here back to Ellis so it can be redistributed? Because again, I don't know why my packet only showed the first slide, which I'm very little info.
I only got the first one as well. I don't think the rest of it was in our packet.
Okay,
Through you, Penny, if you don't mind. That's
Yep.
all we got from
Yep.
Housing in Nantucket, I think, and just send me that right before the meeting. And
Okay.
if you haven't, you could send it to me, please, and I'll circulate.
Oh, I think it would be helpful to put it also maybe with our next agenda so that the public can see this as well.
for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, Anne, why don't you finish and we'll refrain from questions till the end.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So the year one properties that were eligible for renewal, there were 22 of the 22 units were eligible, but once the 50% incentive to renew was offered, then we had forecasted 80% of the property owners would renew, but 2 hadn't finished leases yet. Oops, sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm going forward. Okay, here we go. So far, 14 of the 22 have renewed. 20 of 22 units have leases eligible for renewal. 2 have not finished their leases yet. 15 of 20, in other words, 75% of eligible properties are renewing with qualified tenants. But 5 of the 20 properties that did not renew, they indicated that the grant amount that got reduced by 50% and only a 5% rent increase wasn't enough money for them to carry the cost of cover the carrying costs that they needed to cover in order for them to continue to renting year round. So I hope that answers your question, but we'll be able to break it down a little bit more for you into bedroom size and household size and year 1 versus year 2. And we'll get that back to you before your next meeting and of course the days that you need before that so that you can put it in your report.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes,
Just,
sorry.
I'm struggling to understand. So there were 22 units. Of the 22 units, 20 of them or 14 haven't renewed. I'm confused where the 20 of 22 comes from.
Hold on, Brian. 14 have renewed.
14 have renewed.
64% from year 1 did renew for year 2. There were 20 of the 22 units that were eligible for renewal. And 5 of the 20 at the bottom there didn't renew because there wasn't enough money with only the 5% rent increase to cover the carrying costs and the 50% grant. Somebody needs to mute that's got some background noise going. I can't tell who it is. Okay. I think this should be on our agenda for next time we meet as well, because I think they're going to be, once we read this whole report and have time to absorb it, I think there are going to be more questions than we think of today. At any rate, Anne, why don't you keep?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yes, and I know that next time I can ask Colin from Placemate to come because he has a lot more of the background information also, and anything that comes up on the fly, he'll be able to answer that quickly.
Okay.
So in year 2, there were 12 additional properties, 27 people housed, 22 qualified tenants. The average monthly rent is $29.58, and the average monthly rent per bedroom is $13.15. So combining the 2 years, it's a total of 34 properties, 81 total people housed, 68 qualified tenants, and average monthly rent a little over $3,000. So these were some of the local employers that had employees that were within the housing. I had highlighted here what I would consider essential personnel: FAA, Highline Cruises, Nantucket Cottage Hospital, of course, the town of Nantucket, and the public school. This is what was spent so far. So the incentive budget for, as we talked about, $450,000 was provided through the Affordable Housing Trust and $100,000 through the Remain Fund. And these are what we have allocated so far. This is, as I mentioned, the program runs basically through the end of August. So this last line item here, to Brian's question before, why is there funding left over still? And this 50,500 is basically through the rest of the year, the rest of the grant term, we have the ability to lease up another 2 to 4 properties with this funding. And we're doing some advertising, and there's a couple of properties that we're kind of looking into, but that's, just 2 properties, and I'm certain we're going to be able to spend that before the end of August.
Two quick things, Anne. This includes the 100,000 from Remain, but not what was contributed by Act Now or Housing Nantucket towards administration. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is really operational budget, right?
Or the grants, yes.
Okay. So the second comment, year 2 properties pipeline, that 175.
Yes.
Another way I would look at that is that's surplus that has not yet been spent.
Nope, because not all the leases have ended yet. And so these are year 2 properties that once their lease ends, then we'll be able to lease up again. So this is not surplus.
So that 175 for those 8 properties constitutes money. This is a question. Does that constitute money that's already committed through leases?
I guess I don't really understand. It's leases that have already been signed, or they're kind of in the pipeline. They will be signed in the coming months, but we know what properties these funds are going to unlock, basically. We know which properties that these are earmarked for.
Okay.
Whereas these pending, we don't know what properties these are going to fund, but we do know that it's very likely that this will be able to find some properties to spend this.
Those 2 items are almost half the money.
Well, I mean, it started in August, and it's a full year. It's not a 6-month expenditure. So I think we're on track.
We can revisit this at the next meeting. Okay, keep going with your presentation, please.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's it for Wiggles.
Okay. Does anybody besides me or Brian have questions about the lease?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
Through you to Anne. Anne, on that same line, the year 2 properties pipeline. So does that mean that those 8 properties will have an option once those leases expire, or they're going to be renewed to renew at the 50%? Like the others? So is that, I guess I'm confused about the 175.5. So that's, how does that work with the renewals? I guess the dates aren't matching up. That's why it's,
right.
I guess I'm confusing myself here. Okay, but somebody asked some other questions, so we'll figure it out.
Okay, let's,
my question's along that same line. I guess maybe to Christy or to Anne, but on the step down of the reoccurring, because I believe there was a multi-year step down on the amount. So it was first year full 70 or 50% the second. Is it 50% the third, or does it step down again? I don't remember.
We never discussed a third year because we wanted to just support it this first year.
Okay, so the 175 is unspent dollars for properties going into potentially either their second or third year.
Only their second year.
Only their second. Okay. So you have no future funding allocated for any of the properties that are going into their third year because there is none based on the program.
That's right.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so Abby was next. Abby has her hand up.
Hi, my question, it's not a complicated math one, so don't worry, Ann. My question was more, do you have success matching? Because I saw you guys encourage families. Did you have success matching the sizes of households with the properties you had on market? Because I know like when we've discussed a lot of times people might be looking for just like one bedroom, but did you have all like big houses? So that wasn't necessarily like the matchup. That was more just my question.
Thank you.
There wasn't an issue with that as far as I know. I mean, the way I understood it, and this is where Placemate really did the bulk of the work, because they're really the ones who are fielding calls from the property owners. So first thing to do is to get the property itself, and then it's about getting the tenant household that would fit that dwelling, you know, the number of bedrooms and whatnot to match it up with a qualified household. There's certainly a lot of qualified households out there, not a lot of properties. So that wasn't something that an issue that we dealt with.
So Placemates, the last time they spoke with us, had a very, I thought, thorough, in-depth explanation about this. They said a number of the properties were brought to them with the tenant, where the owner knew the person. And it was pretty high percentage, if I remember. I think they should come back at our next meeting. Because I think that the level of questions we're asking, probably it would be helpful to have them here. Yes, Forrest, if you could unmute, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just have two quick questions, Anne. The first one goes kind of back into your presentation. You mentioned that you offer incentives for children also. Is that in addition to the maximum allowable incentives per tenant?
Anne?
Sorry, I'm flipping back. Did you have, which slide was it, Forrest?
I think it goes back. It was the second or third one. It talked about incentives for children.
Yep.
I don't have the whole.
There it is. There it is.
Okay.
You know, I just have to say, as a person who works in real estate, we have to be very careful about anything which treats minor people differently in any way. So I think this is interesting. I mean, usually it's a discrimination issue. You can't refuse to rent to people with children under a certain age, that type of thing. Anyway, okay. Why do you think there are incentives for children? Well, to encourage family participation. Do you know how much the percentage?
Yeah, you know, I don't recall off the top of my head if it's 50% incentive for children or 100%. But when Colin comes next time, we can have him talk about it. And of course, I'll look it up too.
Okay, thanks, Ann. And Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, I have just one more question, if that's okay.
Yep.
My question goes back to the math at the end, and it doesn't have to do with the 175. It was more about the 50 with the pending. You have until August 2025 to secure units for that funding, correct?
That's right.
And what happens if you're not able to by August?
We have to return the funds.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Okay, thank you. I've got Town Committee 3. I can't tell who it is with your hand up. You can unmute.
It's Ellis.
Oh, thank you,
It's
Ellis.
I lived in the Listo Locals housing prior to this, prior to prior to Affordable Housing Trust involving money, so I can explain the children incentive. The children just counts as another qualifying tenant, and that's the incentive that they're giving. Usually, like when there's an incentive, kids are not counted. And for you to qualify for Listo Locals, you have to work 30 hours a week on Nantucket year round. In order for, you can have 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, you can have 10 kids. They all qualify as one qualifying tenant. So you get 1 grant and you get 100% of it for, it doesn't matter how many kids you have, but you get 1 grant for them.
Thank
I hope
you.
that answers your question, Forrest, and I'm sorry to budge in.
Yep. That's helpful. Okay, other questions of Anne? She's gonna get us this report so we can have time to look at it and absorb it. And we'll get Lease to Locals, the placemates back here with you at our next meeting, hopefully.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And
great.
you want to move on to your update on Wiggles Way, 31 Fairgrounds Road, please?
Yes.
I made an update in your absence, first just from the construction committee perspective at the meeting 2 weeks ago, which is in the minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, more people are moving in every day and we're signing leases. But just to recap here, 22 units, mixed income, multifamily housing, it's new construction. We are substantially complete here where there's 6 of 8 certificates. Oh, Penny, did you
No,
have?
excuse me. We have all 8 certificates of occupancy. There are 2 being held right now to satisfy the final planning approval for the flex development permit. And they're waiting for that sidewalk to be installed in front, and then they'll be released.
Okay,
We
which
have
is,
all 8 COs.
we don't have them because if we had them, then we would move tenants into them. So,
The town has issued them.
okay, but since we don't have them, we can't move tenants into the units that are covered by those COs. But thank you for that distinction. I'll get into a little bit what's going on with the landscaping and that transfer over to the land bank in a minute. So here's some gorgeous pictures that Maria took from our office who's on this call. She took some really nice pictures. I mean, it's beautiful, and many of you came to a little kind of open house. We haven't really done the huge splash block party that we have planned. We're waiting for the landscaping to be fully installed, and there's another coat of road that needs to get installed and some parking lines and little kind of finishing touches that need to get put on it before we're really going to be doing any kind of big community event. But we are showing the units to tenants and they are very, very nice. So
yeah, I think it would be helpful to the trust if you could say, the last I heard, there were 12 units occupied. People had moved in. Is that accurate? There we go.
yeah, so I made a little slide here about that, and it's a good question, so thank you for asking. But as of April 14th, 73% of the units have certificates of occupancy within our hands. So that will make that distinction. There's tenants selected for just that many units, and we're selecting tenants for units even though they don't have the certificates of occupancy based on what a household's family size looks like and the composition. So say it's a single father with 2 children, then we know what kind of unit is going to best suit his needs. And it might not be the one that has the certificate of occupancy, but rather one of the ones that's kind of pending. So we try to judge what a household's needs are and the immediacy of their housing needs. Some people can stay where they're at for a little while longer. So Charlene, who's also on this call and available to answer any questions that you might have specifically, but she's really doing a great job at assessing the big picture as well as the individual needs of the household. So we've been very busy this month trying to find tenants who are going to, that it works for everybody. So there's at this point there's 27%. I think actually we jumped up because there's a new tenant household selected, but that's at least 6 units are filled with municipal employees, so that's school employees as well as town employees.
We were told it was 9 at the meeting on Friday. I think it's jumped up.
Wonderful.
If I could just add in, we have 6 restricted for municipal use, and then there's other people who either through the lottery or were
Yep.
already on the ready to rent list that are additional municipal
Thank you.
employees.
Which is great. Okay, and keep going, please.
Yeah, I had some questions from trust members, so I made this slide to try to help to explain why different units have different rents and how we came up with those rents. So I split it up into 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units. So each slide kind of goes into the number of units that we have. So there's 8 one-bedroom units. And here in this column, I hope you can see the little hand, there's 2 one-bedroom units serving 80% AMI. So those are awarded by lottery. When we figure out the rent for those 80% AMI households, we use the formula. So this includes utilities, and the rent at this AMI is this amount here. Market rent for a one-bedroom is $3,200. That's what we're using. And if we, this is kind of defaults back, rent including utilities at the AMI or 85% of the market, which is kind of where we didn't want to charge the full market rent, but rather 85% of the market. So in this case, for 80% AMI household, it defaults to that lower rent, $2,194. And then this is a $1,000, a little more than $1,000 discount to market. So there's also 110 and 150% AMI units for these one bedrooms. There's 310 AMI units and 350% AMI one bedrooms. If you figure out what the rent would be at this AMI, it comes up to $3,016.
So, Anne, you need to explain that. You need to get into the 30%.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Penny.
Yeah.
So the way we calculate what's affordable for rent is we take that household income at this AMI, we multiply it by 30% because that's kind of a general guideline. If rent, including utilities in this case, is below 30% of what this household's income is, then it's considered affordable for that household. So
I need to say, just so that people understand, 110% right now of AMI is almost 170,000 a year. Okay.
it depends on the household
And the
size.
size of the household, but a straight
For one bedroom, what we do is we use 1 bedroom plus 1. So we take it for a 2-person household. We figure out what 110% AMI is, and this is based on published numbers from Housing and Urban Development. And then we can back into what they can afford for rent.
Yep.
So at that AMI, they can afford $3,000, a little more than $3,000. If market rate's $3,200, we take 85% of market rate, and then we compare it to what they can afford at their AMI. Well, we default down to the 2720, which is 85% of the market. So they're still getting a pretty good discount for $480 per month. And the same thing happens for 150% AMI. So when we do that calculation, they could afford a $4,000 rent, but who's going to pay $4,000 for 1 bedroom? It's just not really, it doesn't really work for this type of housing that we have. So then we defaulted to the 2720, 85% of the market rent. And that helps us to pay back the loans that we have, to cover the costs of the overages that came along the way.
And I think one of the difficulties here to understand, that was a good explanation, but why would the 150 and the 110 be paying the same rent?
Because that's 85% of market for a 1 bedroom. So it defaults down to that 85% of market. That's the model that we used.
So it's a formula that's driving this.
Yeah, we're comparing, is 85% of market versus the rent that they can afford at AMI. And we default down to the 85% of market. It's like, no, I don't know how else to explain it. It's, if we're offering 1 bedrooms for $4,000, we're not going to be able to rent them.
And I don't think anybody's expecting that. It's really an issue of parity, I think. That's hard for people to understand. But anyway, that's okay.
So we do the same kind of stuff.
I want to point out too, the other thing here, when you say includes utilities, you're talking about water, heat, electricity, right?
Yes, up to a certain amount. So we did what they call HERS ratings for each of these units by bedroom size. We figure out how much electricity is normal use for that bedroom size. And then within the lease, we're providing that up to that amount to the tenant. And if the tenant exceeds that amount, then they're going to be responsible with National Grid to pay for it. So if they want to run the heat at 90 degrees, you know, they're going to have, they can do that, but they're going to pay for it. We're not going to pay for it.
And they're all metered separately, and the solar array, people think it's running straight to these units. It's running to the grid. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. And then the way that National Grid does that, they do net metering. So we have to tell National Grid what percent each unit, each separately metered apartment gets, and then as well as the house account.
Okay, well, quick question from Rachel. She has her hand up, if we could.
I guess my concern is what happens to the group that's making 81% of AMI to 109% of AMI? Because it seems like they're the ones that are really getting kind of.
It's when you see those percentages, the AMI, it's up to, so you're right, it would be between 81 and 109, right, Anne?
Yes, that's just the way that, you know, you bring up a good point, Rachel, but you know, when it, like this column here, it says 80% and perhaps it would be more clear to say less than 80%. So it's really 60 to 80% and 81 to 110% and 111 to 150%. But the way that the state and, you know, if this is a universal for all SHI listed units, the formula is based on 80% AMI for a 2-bedroom. So if this is a 2-bedroom, so we go 2 bedrooms plus 1, 3-person household at 80% AMI, 30% of what their income is. That's what the rent that they can afford. When market rate in this example is $4,000 for a 2-bedroom, then we're going to default down to what they can afford for their AMI, and that's the rent. So we're not figuring it out based on the individual AMI of that household. It's where do they fall within this. That said, we do look at what the income of the household is, and we make sure that this gives us some leeway here, so that if you know, we check and make sure this is an affordable rent for the household, because we're not trying to put people into housing they can't afford.
Okay, thank you. Abby has a quick question.
Yeah, I guess I have a hard time understanding if someone's at 150% and you're saying market rate is less than what they can pay, why wouldn't you have them pay more to theoretically offset the like lower units? And I guess also my other question is it realistic to really think that market rate is less than the rent that someone can pay here in Nantucket? Because, like, I mean, just personally, like, looking at this, a 3-bedroom, you're saying market rate max is 4,000, even though this person can
Hey,
afford a little more, I guess.
Hold on 1 second. This slide that's up right now is about the 2-bedroom units, and where it says number of units, 3. There are 3.
Yeah, 2 bedrooms. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So,
But I guess that's my question is less about the bedrooms, is more about, like, if you have a scenario where the rent at AMI is higher than the market rate, why wouldn't you charge this ceiling, I guess, if they can afford it?
I think this has to do with EOHLC, does it not? Is Christy here?
No, it doesn't have to do with EOHLC, but it's, I think I can let Ann talk to it, but it's common practice. Richmond goes down. Ann's presenting this as going down. It's something to stay under the market, to just make the units still attainable.
Ann, do you want to add to that?
Absolutely. Yes. Our mission is to create housing that is attainable for the year-rounders. We're not trying to gouge these tenants. I mean, this is our mission, and this is a project that Affordable Housing Trust dollars has gone to, a big chunk of it. So it just didn't feel right to us to be charging the maximum that we could. And additionally, it just doesn't, that's not really our management practice, because it makes us vulnerable. We want to be able to give people a deal. You know, 85% of market is still a deal. and it helps us to retain tenants because turnovers are expensive. We want people to get in there and we want them to stay. So
I guess, no, I understand what you're saying. I guess I think the way this looks is more like you're penalizing the person at 110% because they're paying the same rent as someone who is 150%. So it's less about, you're right, I don't think we should be penalizing the higher rate, but it's more like because of the way this matrix out, they're paying the same rent, whether you're 110 or 150. And that to me seems like the bigger issue is like, why would, because obviously there's a disparity, a big disparity in their income, why should they be paying the same is more my question.
Or even the 85% maybe won't even qualify for an apartment because they can't
Right.
afford the one.
Yeah, so it's really, yeah, I think Rachel, sorry, I think you were more eloquent about it. I think it's more like it's penalizing the people at the over 80% part, but less than 150 because they're all being put in the top amount that everyone is paying up to 150. So I just was wondering why it wouldn't be more tiered to have more nuance for those people making less, I guess. Rachel, that's kind of what you were saying, right? Okay, that was, I guess, the same question. I don't really understand that.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. This is the direction that we chose to do. It's affordable for everyone. Yes, the 150% AMI, it's a little more affordable for them, but I think that the 110% AMI and anybody from 81% to 110% is going to be happy with a $3,400 new unit, 2-bedroom unit. So we're considering the needs of the tenants as much as we can, but we also have to consider our own organization's needs because we have mortgages to pay and you know, we have to pay back loans. So this strikes a balance where we felt good as an organization that the tenants are getting a good deal, they're getting safe housing, and we're able to meet our operating budgets so that we can continue to maintain the property in the showpiece condition that we want it, we all want it to.
So I just want to touch on mortgages for a quick second, if I could. Christy, is it not true that the payment of the mortgages to the town start in 7 years from now?
No, that's not true.
But one of you said yes and one said no.
I thought that was the response that we received from Brian Turbot. I'll confirm and get back to you.
Thank you.
I'll just say, my understanding is that when the last CO is in our hands, we have 1 year, and then we have to start paying back the mortgage to the town. So that first year, the operating income, I see you shaking your head, but that's how I understand.
Okay, well, let's not take this valuable time while the public is here at this meeting to sort this out. You guys can figure it out and let us know at our next meeting.
That sounds good.
Take a look at
All
the
right, so
model.
just lastly, the 3-bedroom units. There's 1 3-bedroom. This is an ADU unit. So in other words, for Americans with disabilities, and it's an ambulatory equipped. So there's like lower counters, and there's a washer dryer in this unit. The oven is lower. The dishwasher is lower. Things like that, and so this 80% AMI unit is market rate for 3-bedroom, we're saying is $5,500. So it defaults back to what that 80% 4-person household can afford, and that's $2,741. So for the 2 other 3-bedroom units, we are charging $4,675, and those are very nice units, and we hope to rent them soon. But you can't. That's a lot of rent. So there's not an extremely large pool of people who are able to afford that. But I know that we're working hard to get somebody in there who can. So that's the deal with that. And so that's it. So thank you very much. And I'll follow up with all of your questions. They're very thoughtful and appreciate it.
Okay, did any board members have any more questions on this project at this time? Okay. Anybody from the public have any questions? There we go. Now I can see everybody. Thank you. No. Okay. And thank you for that. Going to move on. Next up is Tucker Holland with an update on a grant Oh, I've lost my agenda. Anyway, update on the grant. Tucker?
Thanks very much, Penny. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's good to be with you all. I think I was asked to give an update on the new session with the transfer fee and our efforts around communication for that. You all will recall that the last few years we had worked side by side with Martha's Vineyard on both direct lobbying, which the Vineyard paid for, and then strategy and communications consulting, which Nantucket paid for. And we did that through sister organizations, O'Neill and Associates being the direct lobbying firm, and then Seven Letter being the communications and strategy firm. The principal person we worked with at Seven Letter is a gentleman named Jeremy Crockford, very experienced, and he got us a lot of great focus and attention in the press and State House News. So I think members might recall that ultimately, despite the governor including the transfer fee in her Omnibus Affordable Homes Act, it did not make it into the final version of the bill that was signed by the governor. There is reason for optimism, we understand, from Senator Sear about getting it passed for this session. Excuse me just for a brief moment.
Last time Tucker did that, there was a giant spider on his computer.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think Forrest had his hand up.
Oh,
First.
yes, Forrest, go ahead.
I did. I'm sorry to interject, Madam Vice Chair, but I need to excuse myself. I have a prior commitment, so I just didn't want to interrupt Tucker's presentation. So I wanted to kind of.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And if you are able to hop back in, feel free. And
okay, thank you very much.
yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm sorry for the break there. I hope you all can still hear me.
Yes.
So I think I was saying that Senator Sear has expressed reason for optimism about the transfer fee in this upcoming session. A lot of good groundwork was laid in terms of education around the importance of this, particularly in communities like ours, seasonal communities. And as folks know, the seasonal communities designation and framework was included in the Affordable Homes Act, which was signed by the governor. And the senator sees that as probably the best avenue to ultimately obtaining a transfer fee to benefit housing. So the focus in this current session, and again, folks are familiar that sessions are 2 years at the legislature. We're in year one right now, kind of at the start. The heavy lifting gets done in year two. No real controversial issue is taken up typically in year one. And so this really is a 2-year campaign to ultimately get the transfer fee. Fingers crossed, we're all hoping this is the time. But it is a 2-year campaign. And the positive news is that we understand several key senators in the process of getting it across the finish line have expressed interest in coming to the region and understanding firsthand the problem. And Senator Sear takes that as a sign of promise. So with all that as background regarding Jeremy Crockford, Jeremy, again, has been highly effective, and he had parted company with Seven Letter at the end of last year, somewhat moving into a semi-retirement mode, still interested and open to working with certain clients and on issues that he feels particularly attached to. And while initially, the thought was to just sort of continue the same monthly effort, if you will, with regard to communications. Jeremy had thoughtfully reached out a few months ago and said, there really isn't a big point in spending money right now. That, again, this is a 2-year campaign. The press can sometimes get fatigued around issues, and the push from his perspective really will come in year 2, let's say the beginning of 2026, as the legislature tees up to really take on the tough issues going into the final days of formal session. So he simply had said, let's kind of put things on the back burner for now, and if there's something that comes up between now and the beginning of next year where my help is useful, certainly happy to participate and effectively be hired on a hourly or project basis. But in terms of a monthly retainer, he thoughtfully said, let's just not worry about that right now, and let's really get to work at the beginning of next year. So that's where things stand, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions that I can.
Okay, any board members have questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's all right on and good. I would say that next year, if we do consider something, we might want to consider it doing it in-house. We have some of the most expertise on the Cape and Islands and the Commonwealth about what the state of housing, and I think we are capable of going through the motions with this, especially with Senator Sear, our former rep, now Senator Fernandez for the Plymouth district, and Thomas Moakley. We know a lot of folks. I think we should think about, before we expend any other resources on this, whether we could do it ourselves.
Thank you, Tom. I came across something recently when I was cleaning out a pile of paper, and I first testified in favor of this, I believe it was 18 years ago. Is that possible, Tucker? It was a long time ago.
Yeah, there was a prior version of what we've got up there now. You're right, Penny.
And that was just Nantucket, and now it's statewide opt-in, which carries more weight. Okay, anybody else have, Brian, yes, please, go ahead.
Tucker, when the recommendation was to take a pause and then revisit, is there any budget left over that was previously allocated to be used later, or just kind of wanted to understand where that was?
Yeah, so yes, Brian. So from what was authorized last fall in terms of re-engaging or engaging Jeremy separate from 7-letter, really there is only 2,500 of what was originally allocated that has been expended. So the remainder of what was authorized would be available.
Thank you, Tucker. Okay, any other questions from the public for Tucker or any board members? No. Okay, thank you very much for that report. We're going to move on. We've got a big agenda today. Item number 8 is the Closing Cost Assistance Program application update. I just have one comment on that myself, which is on page 2 of 6. It refers to the AMI levels, 80, 100, 150, and 175 as of, and it's got, I think it's a typo. It says as of December 31st, 2021, if somebody could correct that. Christy, are you looking for, well, you go ahead. You introduce this one.
Yes. So every year we update the closing cost assistance application. Really, we take a look over at it. Last year, we realized the application was being submitted to the Plus department. So we did a major overhaul of it last year to make sure all of the updated information was coming to the town building. And this year we're updating it for the new income levels that were just released by HUD on April 1st. So this increases for a family of 4, our area median income is 163,500, and then everything else is calculated off of that. So the closing cost assistance is up to 175% of area median income, but the Affordable Housing Trust serves up to 240%. So that will be reflected on our website as we update that.
Thank you. Any questions for Christy? Okay, do we need action on this one?
Just a vote to put through the
Confirmatory
changes.
vote. Okay, does somebody want to make that motion, please? Oh, Abby, are you going to make that motion?
Do you want me to make the motion?
Thank you.
Since no one else?
Thank
I
you.
will make the motion. Wait, do you want, Christy, what do you want me to make the exact motion to say? I'll do it.
Just to put through the changes that were recommended in the packet.
Right, to approve the closing cost assistance program application update.
Okay, so I will make a motion to put through the changes as described in the packet to the closing cost assistance program update.
Second.
Thank you so much. By roll call vote, Tom Dixon
Aye.
and Megan.
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
and the chair pro tem votes aye. Next up is the announcement for the 3rd annual Howard Dickler Citizen Award nominees. This is simply the announcement of the nominees. We've not yet voted, and Christy is going to explain what we're going to do with that process. There are 4 people, community members, citizens who have been nominated. I asked Christy, there's a memo in our packet, but I thought it would be helpful to see the letters of nomination if they exist with, these different people. So Christy, why don't you take it from here, please?
Absolutely. So the Dr. Dickler Citizen Award is an annual recognition honoring community members who exemplify Dr. Dickler's dedication to housing advocacy. Dr. Dickler was a valued member of our community, known for his unwavering commitment to addressing housing and economic issues on Nantucket. Through his active participation in public meetings and his service on the Neighborhood First Advisory Committee, he played a crucial role in shaping the Affordable Housing Trust's efforts to maintain safe harbor under Chapter 40B since 2019. This year, we received 4 nominees that I'm just pulling up. The first is Rima Sherry. The second is Beth Ann Meehan. The third is Renee Seeley, and 4th is Joe Grouse. I will be circulating the information, and it should be in the updated packet of the nominations. It's redacted who nominated the person to keep that anonymous, but you can read the details of why each person was nominated. All of these people have made great contributions to housing, and the way that you're going to vote is similar to last year, where you'll just send an email to me and I'll tally the votes, and the award will be announced at annual town meeting on May 3rd at 8:30 in the morning. And it's usually the first item of business, thanks to Sarah Alger. And then the following trust meeting, we'll meet on Tuesday. We will announce it there as well, and put it out publicly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Penny.
Yeah, yes, Megan.
Could I just ask a quick question? Could you remind me who won last year, or was last year the first year?
So the first
Done
year
too.
was
Okay.
Billy Cassidy, and the
Okay.
second year was Richard Hussey.
Okay.
Richard Hussey, just so you know, it was with Habitat. And of the nominees, Rima Sherry had a long history here on this board, on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Joe Grouse is also with Habitat and is on the town's finance committee. Beth Ann Meehan, long career in mortgage lending to first-time buyers. She's done over many thousands of loans at Cape Cod 5 and also serves on the Housing Authority. And Renee Seeley was the executive director for 26 years of the Nantucket Housing Authority, and she resigned about 4 years ago now.
Thanks, Penny.
Yes.
Christy, I was just gonna ask, what's the deadline for us to reply with our votes?
I'm gonna send an email
You
out to
send an email
everybody.
to us. Yeah.
Okay, and you'll give us all
But
the
by
details.
next Friday, the 25th, just so we can have everything ready
Gotcha.
for Sarah Alger.
Yeah, and just a reminder that once we know who it is, I don't know, I think in the past, we haven't even been told until town meeting.
No, I didn't tell anybody.
Okay, I think that's probably a good way to go. Okay, next up, item 10 on the agenda, the annual town meeting, the communication subcommittee update. And I don't know, Abby, you want to take that, please? Or is somebody going to screen share? Maybe?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Sorry, Abby, do you want me to start fire or should I? I don't think Abby's here, so I will.
No, sorry, I'm here. I
Oh,
just
sorry.
had to grab the baby.
Okay.
Did you want me to share or do you want to share?
I can share.
Yeah,
Here,
but Abby, why
if
don't
you
you
guys can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to zoom in a little bit and we can. So I know we brought this to you guys before. We added a couple of things. I'll just go through the changes and, you know, whoever can feel to comment. We pointed out, as Chrissy mentioned, that the fund was created in 2009. So we wanted people to understand, like, we've been working since then, but since 2019 has really been since we started getting our funding. So you can see that it was created in 2009, but since 2019, we've secured that 80 million in funding. Below is just a list of some of our programs. We added in a comment here about a portion of this funding has also purchased vacant land that will sustain the creation of another 90 units. The list over there is the 322 deed restricted units and 64 that are in, you know, underway. And we talk about, you know, as we just reviewed, the serving the families from 80 to 240% of the AMI, in that this was just released. The 2025 AMI for a family of 4 is 163.5 in
excuse me, Abby, it's 153.5.
I think
No,
I think
153 was last year.
yeah, it's
Are you
updated.
sure? I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, Penny, literally it came out, I think last week, Christy, maybe. So it's new, brand
Good.
new data.
Thank you.
163.5. And so then on the right-hand side, we talk a little bit about using the funds efficiently. The 206,000 is based on the amount of money that we had, that 80 million over those, all those units, the deed restricted units, which, as we point out, you know, no one else in Nantucket can create a unit for $206,000. And then we broke up the programs between those that keep you in safe harbor, gap financing. That was, we weren't sure if we called it construction financing. It might be too confusing for people. As everyone's aware, closing cost assistance, covenant formation, and then grants to, we changed this to secure restricted homes because we purchase, but we also relocate. So we do both. So just kind of keeping it broad. And then I added in this part about we have 405 units counting towards SHI, which is up 206 units, which it was 199 in 2020. And then the non-SHI programs, as everyone's kind of well aware, the year-round deed restrictions and the lease to locals. So
yeah,
that's everything. And Christy's gone through it. I think Penny, you've gone through it. I think everyone else has also seen it a couple times. So
I just want to say, I think you guys did an amazing job on this. I think you kept it simple, clear, and to the point. I also want to point out that if this was 2020, the last decennial census year, and we had 405 units 5 years ago, if we'd had 405, we would have been within, what, 10 or something of safe harbor at that point. So to have 6.6% towards that is phenomenal. And Christy, we're on track, aren't we, to hit this by 2027, the 10%?
Yes. We're still looking at it. There's an update with Surfside Crossing now that that's been denied.
Yeah. So I think
it's being appealed, Christy. It's not dead yet.
no. So I think this is, and you're planning to use this as a handout at town meeting?
Yes.
And what else? Is it gonna be linked to what's the plan for getting the word out there?
So we did bring it. I went to Rotary last week to give an update on housing. We brought it there. That was actually a really great discussion. A lot of the same feedback that we get is, people want to know more about housing and don't know where to get it. So the committee's also working on an FAQ for our website of a lot of questions that we've received over time, and we can just keep adding to it. But we really want to amplify the town website and making sure all the information is there. About 6 or 8 months ago, we put together a list of all the projects, but now projects have been completed and they still say kind of in process. So we just want to make sure everything's updated before town meeting.
Yep.
I also went to CPC this morning and gave an update to them on how we've utilized CPC funds. And I'm working on other ideas, like Penny mentioned, maybe trying to get on the radio before town meeting to get the word out. So we're trying to kind of go on a housing tour prior to town meeting. And then obviously I'll be at town meeting speaking about all of the articles.
Okay, a couple of things, and then I see some hands are up too, but I would like to see if the trust thinks this is a good idea, on the back side of this, when it gets printed, that updated list of all the properties, right, Christy, that we've been using when we say we've created 129 and there another whatever number it is coming.
Okay.
I just think that would be useful. Yes, Tom Dixon.
Yeah, I think this is terrific. I think it exactly incorporates the suggestions and changes that we discussed from last time. I just have two minor suggestions for something that could be added basically as footnotes. One is under programs working to keep Nantucket in safe harbor, SHI. I think there should be a little star or a 1 as a footnote down there that says subsidized housing inventory, and the link to what describes that through the state. And the other one would be area mean income, AMI, and then maybe a website address. It will probably be long, but a website address that links to where we're pulling these numbers from, just so that any members of the public can go look at those, because they are quite confusing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think those are good suggestions. And you've got a little space there to add a few things. Megan?
Thank you. This looks amazing. Thank you guys for all your hard work. I was just curious where we were sharing this. If I missed that, apologies. Like, are we electronically? Are we sharing it?
Abby? Or Christy?
Well, I mean, I think Christy said she shared it at the Rotary. I don't think we've shared it anywhere else. I think the thought is, as Penny said, like, we could print them out, hand them out at town meeting. That's a good place. I think we also wanted to put it on the website and make sure we keep it kind of like updated so that it continues to be something that people can see. One of the things Florencia had mentioned we were thinking about is if we put a QR code on it, then it can go back to the website as well. So like, I think this will kind of end up being live, but the thought is it will we want to drive traffic back to our website.
Abby, you'd also your committee had talked about some extensive digital outreach through the Current and the Daybreak.
Yeah, we wanted to do a good point, Penny. We wanted to do some ads in the Current and Daybreak. And so again, the ad, what we had talked about with Florencia is like taking a sentence or two from this, turning it into the ad, but then also kind of linking back again, getting people to our website. And this would be one of the things that they would see. And if we do something on Instagram, like if we did a post, we could link to it there. We also have the videos that we want to do. So there's a bunch of places where we would do it, but I think the thought is like as many places as we can, just kind of getting this out there would be great. But again, keeping it like fresh so that if people go to that site, they're going to see this.
So we have 2 weeks basically to giddy up on this, to get this going.
Yes, but the good thing is this is, I mean, essentially like to add those links Tom mentioned, that's easy.
Yep.
And I could do that, Tom, pretty easily.
Yep.
So that wouldn't be a problem. And I think to add the things on the back as well, Penny, I don't think that's an issue.
Okay.
So,
I have a follow-up comment.
Yes, Megan.
Thank you. I was just wanted to suggest that it might be possible for the Community Foundation to share this flyer through their Healthy Community Collaborative / like nonprofit listserv. It goes to a ton of people. And then I was wondering, that made me think, would Housing Nantucket and or Habitat for Humanity add it to any flyer that they're sending out or any newsletter that they're sending out before a town meeting? And the Daybreak will run, if you send them a blurb, they'll put it into their newsletter for free. So that's like a free advertising opportunity, but I was just trying to brainstorm ideas for ways that we could get it out to the community that don't have an added cost.
Well, I like your idea, Meg, of the big listserv. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Good job, guys.
Yeah, really good job. Okay, Brian.
I love this. Thank you so much for putting it together. But as a person who can only read 144 characters at a time, are there visuals that we can put or create to go in tandem, especially digitally?
Yeah.
Like the number of housing units in 2009, and then when money kicked in, and then the number of units started increasing at a very rapid rate. Things along those lines. I think some visuals would be great. And then hearing about some advertising potential, I'm curious, is there a budget amount that we can maybe take a vote on and approve up to now?
Yes.
So since there's only a couple weeks.
Okay, two things.
Yes and yes.
We'll get your answers. Rachel, I'm sorry, I hopped over you. I'm so sorry. I didn't see your hand because the background. So Rachel, did you have? Yeah.
That's okay. I think Sully was first. I was one of the suggestions. I don't know how you and Brian Sullivan feel about this, was to get it out to NAREB.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get it out to NAREB. Okay. Yeah, but I think it has to be clearly linked. The link needs to be embedded in here, or so people know where to go. Okay, so we need a motion. We got to move this along because it's almost 2 o'clock. So we need a motion to approve the work of this committee, subject to comms. Yep.
Sorry, but we didn't do the quote from NCTV. That's pretty much what we needed.
Yeah, so there in your packet was a quote from NCTV for doing these short videos. These are a variety of people that have benefited from funding from the trust, whether it's down payment assistance, lease to locals, any habitat, a lot of things that we've funded here. And so I guess we need to, Christy, does that have to be separate motions?
No, so our staff recommendation would be that we don't pursue the videos before town meeting just because of the timeline. But to overall have a budget for communication, so we could still work on videos that we could kind of have over time and add to our website, but also just, we want to make communications part of a year-long strategy, not just leading up to town meeting.
It used to be part of, we used to have budgeted funds for communication in the early years. So anyway, what do we need right now? We need an approval of this work that's been done by the committee. So with Tom's suggested changes, does somebody want to make that motion?
So Penny, I'd like to make a motion to approve the work and the flyer that has been done with the additions of edits and suggestions for distribution prior to town meeting from the communications committee, and period on that, and then I'll make a second motion regarding funding after.
Okay, as widely as possible distribution.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. That's my friendly amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. By roll call vote, let's see, Megan?
Aye.
Thank you, Abby.
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Brian?
Aye.
And the chair pro tem votes aye. Thank you. Second motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we allocate a $15,000 budget to we'll call it marketing and outreach through the course of the year for specific to town meeting information distribution.
Could you say the amount again? I couldn't hear you.
Up to 15,000.
Yeah, okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. By roll call vote again, Megan?
Aye.
Thank you, Abby? Yeah, you're
Oh, aye, sorry.
Tom?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, number 11 on the agenda, annual town meeting, housing articles review. Chris, do you want to lead us on this one?
Yes. So because this is our last meeting before annual town meeting, I just wanted to walk through the housing articles that are related to the Affordable Housing Trust. You guys are not an entity that reviews articles to give comments or motions. That's all done by the Finance Committee and the Planning Board. But I just wanted the public and the trust to be aware of what was being presented. And
Can you hold on one second? I have to interrupt and say, there's a lot of what I think is coming from a loud minority misinformation out there about these articles. I had people saying, you're asking for $5 million from the CPC to finish Wiggles Way. I'm like, no, that's done. So we need to, each of us needs to have a comprehensive and accurate understanding of what these articles are. So go ahead. Thank you.
all right. Alice, can you share the document? Okay, thank you. So Article 8 is the town operating budget. This is where our $6.5 million operating override for the Affordable Housing Trust is included for the town. This is where we fund key initiatives like Lease to Locals, the house recycling program. It's what we used to support Richmond when they did the Sandpiper One bridge loan to create home ownership opportunities on an accelerated base. This is really the cash kind of in our bank to let us act quickly, be able to respond to requests. And most importantly, it's an ability to allow us to further borrow. So in last year's annual town meeting, the community approved the authorization to borrow up to $45 million with the agreement that we would be using this operating override to fund that debt service. So there would be no additional tax rate impact. The Finance Committee recommendation for the overall article, this includes every town budget department, was positive. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that our override is included in that article, and it's helped over 350 families and individuals secure housing.
Christy, is now a good time to talk about the article that's trying to take this away?
I'll get to that.
Okay, thank you.
Article 11 is not related to the Affordable Housing Trust, but is a housing article. And this is seeking $14 million to design and construct municipal employee housing on Waite Drive. These are lots that are next to the lots that Habitat for Humanity is building. And we've gone through the Capital Programs Committee. We've brought this in front of the Finance Committee and the Select Board. It's part of our Select Board strategic plan to build and maintain municipal employee housing. And when we first thought about it, we saw Habitat building their single family homes and duplexes. And we said, hey, let's copy that and put it, copy paste right next door. So this would be 9 units developed on 3 parcels and up to 25 bedrooms. I know that I don't have to say to you how important this housing is for our community. We're working every day to provide community housing, and our employees that are maintaining our roads, responding to our emergencies, everything are the ones that are finding it the most difficult to find housing. You could scroll down.
If I could just interrupt and say, on Article 11, just so everybody understands, the land is already owned by the town and the infrastructure was already done to the tune of some $3 million, a lot of which was covered by a grant that Tucker helped secure some years ago from the Commonwealth.
Yeah. Ellis, can you scroll down slightly? Okay, so Article 28 is the $5 million borrowing authorization through the Community Preservation Act, and this is in partnership with our Community Preservation Committee. This has raised a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks as people say, didn't we already do this? Why are we doing it again? So I went to the CPC this morning and Tom was there to present where funds have been spent and really why are we asking for this again? And Linda Williams kind of really summed it up greatly. Is it provides the flexibility. It's not that we have projects necessarily laid out and said, this is exactly where we're going to spend the money. But when projects come up, then we are able to act quickly. What we have done in preparation for this ask is went to our housing partners like Housing Nantucket, Habitat for Humanity, Nantucket Land Trust, and we said, what projects might be coming down the pipeline? And we had over $10 million in possible requests to the Affordable Housing Trust. So the money will get spent. And we could say, yes, it's going to go exactly to this, but this really provides the flexibility that the town needs to move along in both maintaining safe harbor, but then also creating units at 100% of AMI and below, which is what the CPC restricts. And the use of both kind of buckets where we can use town meeting funds to serve over 100% of AMI and CPC to create under 100% of AMI. That creates that flexibility where our dollars are going further. And we've seen this in how we were able to add so many units to the SHI list through the Richmond development. The next article is Article 29, which is to rescind, it's titled to rescind the borrowing authorization, but aimed at, this is a citizen warrant article aimed at reducing the $6.5 million permanent override. The Finance Committee recommendation on this was negative. And again, this was a citizen sponsored article. So I don't have many more details on this.
Well, I have a question on that, and I'm not sure who can answer this, but this is a town meeting article. Does this then have to pass to strip away that perpetual funding at the ballot?
If the intent is to reduce the the override and create an underride, then yes, it needs to go to a ballot. If it's to rescind a borrowing authorization, then that wouldn't need a ballot.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I will say that we've been briefed by town council on this, and I'm not sure that it's in quite the legal form it needs to be.
Yep.
I might be able to dig up some stuff from town council and forward it to the chair and vice chair if you want to circulate it.
Great.
On the points through that.
That would be great. The other thing I'd ask Christy, if you would email this to each of us, since it wasn't in our packets.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Keep going. Sorry.
That's okay. So Article 82 is a request to opt into the seasonal communities designation. And what this would do is similar to what Tucker was talking about with the Affordable Homes Act, that automatically designated Nantucket eligible to be a seasonal communities designation. And now we need to ratify and opt into that. And this is going to bring new tools to our toolbox, such as allowing year-round deed restrictions. It allows an increase in the year-round tax exemption, the ability to create municipal and artist housing. And we think that in the future will hold even more opportunities. So the Finance Committee recommendation on this was positive. Alice, if you could scroll down. And the last housing article is Article 86, which is the real estate transfer fee. And this is something that we've had a home rule petition since, I want to say 2016, to authorize a 0.5% fee on any real estate property sale over $2 million that would be paid by the seller. This would have funds come into the Affordable Housing Trust with oversight from the Select Board on anything over $100,000. And the Finance Committee recommendation on this was positive. And you can stop sharing the screen, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Anybody have any questions for Christy?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would make one point on the CPC bond authorization. So I've been going to Tuesdays with Campbell where they talk about articles and information, things like that. And there was some amongst the attendees, some kind of confusion about why that, like kind of exactly what you said before. Why that? How is that different than the override, and et cetera, et cetera. And Christy made all the points that we need to make that are pertinent. But I also added, and I think that anybody that we talk to, we can also say, and this came up at our CPC meetings, which is basically with the whole conversation around the transfer fee and some kind of funding stream for affordable and attainable housing, that the state looks at, the Commonwealth looks at us and says,
Yep.
oh, you have unused borrowing authority with CPC. Why don't you just use that? And so this was Christie came with an ask, CPC discussed, arrived at a number. And so this was a deliberative process. But I think it's really important to tell folks that like this is a little bit, there's something kind of bigger than forces at work here than just the 5 million. It is what Christie said, but it's also something else.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Okay, we have one more item on our regular agenda. So it's the execution of the grant for the owner's project manager at Wiggles Way. We already voted this. This is basically an extension for the services of Steve Hollister, who the trust has been paying to oversee the construction at Wiggles Way. And this was, we voted $49,000. And then I'm not sure who drafted the actual grant. Was that Lee?
So Vicky Marsh drafted
Okay,
the grant,
great.
and this
As
is
long
just
as it
the
wasn't one of us.
no, this is the execution of it to vote to allow the chair or his designee to sign.
Yeah. So does somebody want to make that motion? You can just say so moved. You don't have to.
So moved.
Thank you so much, Brian. Is there a second? I'll second it. By roll call vote. Let's see, Megan.
Aye.
Thank you, Tom.
No.
Okay, Abby.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you so much. Wait a minute, we have a couple of other things. Sorry. I just threw away my third page of the agenda. What is it, Christy? A couple of meetings coming up?
Other business, yes. Next
Other
meeting
business.
is May 6th at 12:30 p.m. and then May 20th at 12:30 p.m.
Okay.
And then the next item on the agenda is board comments.
Anybody have anything they want to share?
Just want to say welcome to Dylan.
Welcome to Dylan.
Thank you very much.
Welcome,
Usually-
Dylan. And our meetings are not normally this long.
I was just gonna say they saddled me with a long one. I'm always
Yeah,
trying to
you, Penny, you
Sully.
lost your record back to Brian.
I
I was
Sure
gonna
did.
say she just had to break her streak.
You did that to me, Mr. Sully.
It's a good one to start with.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. All right, can I entertain a motion to adjourn the regular session, not to return for the purpose of going into executive session? What's the language? I used to have.
So moved.
Okay, for the
And
purpose.
seconded.
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say. Okay, great. Again, by roll call vote, Megan.
Aye.
Thank you, Tom.
Aye.
Thank you, Abby.
Aye.
Thank you, and Brian.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and I will see you on the other side. Thank you, Robert Little, for the thumbs up. Thanks. Thanks.